I am super excited actually to have this conversation with you. You are a freelance business coach and owner of a very amazing company. I'm not sure if I'm saying the name properly, but is it MAGICAVE? Is that how you say it the proper way?
Yes, it's MAGICAVE. Thank you so much. I'm also excited to be here too. And yes, MAGICAVE. So that's actually, I have a personal meaning to the company name that I'll go into later. But yes, I am so excited to be here right now.
So I guess I want to know, from what I read about you, I want to go back to the backstory because starting a business is very difficult. And sometimes to even say we're going to take that leap and start a business, it's a big fit you're putting on yourself. And you're putting everything else you have on the edge here to just say, hey, I'm going to start a business. So what is the backstory behind starting your own business?
Oh, that is a great question to start. So for me, I know that I've always wanted to build my own business ever since I was a child. I just thought it would happen later in my life, like my 30s, my 40s, not in my 20s, right? So for me, it was definitely a big leap of faith. For me, there's definitely an element of desiring control over my own schedule and my own boundaries. And I think at that point, I was sick of the corporate structure. I was also sick of academia as well. I did actually think about getting my PhD in computer science before starting my own business. But for me, I think the biggest thing was flexibility because around when I started my own business was when I graduated with my master's of computer science degree. Unfortunately, my mom got really sick during that time. So for
Yeah.
me to, it was really tough during that time. But for me to, think about like jobs or like technical interviews and coding, right? Like that stuff wasn't on my mind. Like the well-being of my family was on my mind. And for me, like the best way to find flexibility was, just to create it in my own schedule, have my own business, right? So for me, that was a
Mhm.
huge motivation to like do things, start a business sooner than I expected because, my family needed me and I wanted to show up for them in New York.
Wow. That is actually very I mean like push to be like, okay, I need to leave this job and I need to be with my family, but I also need money. So let me put all of this knowledge, all of this experience into one place. Why not we just work for myself and I can be with my family? Win-win situation here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was like, yo, two birds with one stone, basically.
Exactly, yes. Is your mom still with us now?
Oh, yes, she's still with us. Thank goodness. She's fully recovered from her medical emergency last year. It was really hard. Countless hospital visits. I'm pretty sure last year
Oh.
alone. Yeah, well, last year of this year, I probably visited like over 100 times between both my parents combined. Yeah, because as soon as my mom got better, and this was around late summer last year, like August, um, literally like about a year ago from today, my dad had a really severe accident in his life as well, which left him paralyzed neck down, and he's still in the same condition. Yeah, so that was really tough figuring out health insurance, things that are still new to me, honestly, working out administrative things, making like phone calls, hospital appointments, just knowing the medical terminology too, was really tough. But, we worked out things right now and it was incredibly tough time. But I think like for me, it definitely forced me to slow down and reprioritize how I saw success and achievement in life.
Yes, you are right. Sometimes we think that success is making all the money in the world that we can make, but really isn't. It's not.
Yeah. That's so true. I mean, it's
Yeah.
what we young people think it is, but then it's not.
No, it's not. There's a lot more into it, especially like the people we love that's always around us. Just thinking, for me, even when I think about one day, I can't even just go and give my mom a hug because she won't be here
Mhm.
with me. And that makes me cry. And she's not even sick, just thinking about it. So I think that like, what you did, I think that it was the best thing any child could have done for the parents. And well, I hope my son will do the same for me, like what you did for your parents. So, can you tell us about Magic Cave Media?
Yeah, absolutely. So MAGICAVE Media, It's a coaching business that helps creative freelancers get their growing gig off the ground. Now, we are a little bit different than other business coaching companies in the sense we're less salesy, we're less pushy in the sense we're trying to do things differently. We're trying to be refreshing from, let's say, a lot of people who go into creative freelancing, they're often burnt out from the corporate world, right? So we're trying to show that we can do things a different way. We can set healthy boundaries. We can still make a living off it, right? Because we still need money to live, even though it's not everything. But we
Mm-hmm.
still, need to work to live, right? So we try to, well, not we try to, we do help people set, healthy boundaries within not just their own life, but in their business as well when they're working with clients, right? And also for themselves too, because working from home nowadays, having that personal and professional separation can be really difficult. I know for
Mm-hmm.
me, even when I used to work at a legal firm as a paralegal, I struggled so much with working from home. But it's interesting because now I think that remote work works really well with my team and MAGICAVE.
Right. And but also as freelancer, I would think that the fact that they are not used to saying that I'm going to be a freelancer and I'm gonna work for myself, and the client gonna send me the work, and it's kind of like it can get very at home. It can get very loss of track of time, I would say, because you get uh, Facebook, you have Instagram. Not only that, if you're a parent, you have the kids, you have the family coming in and out because they think that, hey, he's working at home, she's working at home, I can just pop up when I want to. It's okay. So would you say these things are also the things that you kind of help them to be able to manage it properly, to avoid the distraction and all the things that's going on in the world?
Oh, yes. Yes, I definitely help people with that because, I mean, we humans, we like to think we can do everything, that we can handle everything, but that's not really the case. We're just one person. I often have to remind myself, humble myself with that. That, I only have so much like mental capacity, emotional capacity, physical capacity as well, right? So I do, for example, like completely know the struggle of boundaries with social media because, on one hand, I am trying to use social media with my team to grow a business. On the other hand, I've scaled back on my personal social media because I find it kind of refreshing to have that sense of privacy to myself, not
Mm-hmm.
feeling like I have to share everything with people, and also reminding self that like, people aren't obligated to every single part of my life either. I think that's very freeing for me, at least.
Yes, I agree. Even me, when I started WomLEAD, that's one of the things that I had to back in 2017. I wanted to close my Facebook personal, and then I couldn't close it because Facebook wouldn't allow me to close my profile. So I'm like, okay, if I can't close it, the best I can do is I unfriend people. So from over 10,000 friends, and I post a message say, I apologize, I'm not unfriending you because I don't like you. I'm unfriending you because I need to focus on something else right now. And when I get into Facebook, I can get out of Facebook because all I see is scrolling, scrolling, reading, and I get into drama. I'm not even know how I get into that drama. So I end up unfriending so many people. I end up with 20 people on my Facebook page. And I put a message there for that 20 people. If you need to contact me, please do not contact me on Facebook because I will not reply to you. And I didn't do that because I'm rude, but I did it because that when it comes to the business part, you need to focus. And social media can take that focus away so fast you don't even realize it. And it's become a habit. When you think you're going on social media for work, you end up going there scrolling to everybody else's page and you got nothing done the whole day. So I see your point where you can help people. Me, I was able to overcome that on my own because I really wanted WomLEAD to succeed. But some people, they've been doing it for so long, it's become such a bad habit, it's hard for them to get rid of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up and continued that part of the conversation because oftentimes with clients I do, we discuss, for example, healthy boundaries in terms of, preventing yourself from mindlessly scrolling, but also, wanting to make authentic connections through social media, right? I try to
Hmm.
remind them and also myself from time to time that attention is not the same as connection on social media, right? Because
I like that one.
yeah, because like we can look at somebody's profile, we can think like, oh, they must have such a great life. This is what they're up to now. But like in reality, it can be completely different, right? We only see like images on a screen, basically. So it's hard to judge. So it's so easy for us to jump to assumptions if we're just working online, especially in digital companies nowadays, right? Which is why I try to encourage myself and clients to be in touch with the physical world as much as possible. And not even that, just sometimes even doing business in the physical world too, right? Because I think for
Mhm.
me, like, having a good referral network, like a family and friends in person, right? Like all these things that I feel like we're so hyper focused nowadays on growing an online presence. Sometimes we forget that there are other options too. Like we can put up physical posters, for example, at the local university or grocery store. I know for me,
Mhm.
I actually love, aside from coaching, I love tutoring on the side for SAT and GRE. I grew up on a very academic environment. So, like, I'm thinking of it as I'm passing down the studying I did as a kid and giving them the tips and tricks to succeed. And it's a little bit different than coaching because I guess in tutoring, there's an end result. You're trying to, pass a test or get into a school, right? But it's still very rewarding for me. There are so many similarities between tutoring and coaching. So that's, the space I love to operate in. But, going back to the point about boundaries with the digital world and physical world, I do find it refreshing once in a while to have that in-person interaction instead of, having everything be virtual. Because I mean, we are humans. We are, given the grace of experiencing the physical world reality as is, right? And for us, just to
Mhm.
live in the metaphysical, like the digital reality all the time, um I think that's something that's often overlooked, especially as, Meta is trying to ramp up the metaverse, all these things. I kind of worry that we're going to lose touch with physical reality.
I feel you. And I feel the same way too, because we should still be connected with one another. Don't get me wrong, sometimes we have families from far away. Digital world might be okay to stay connected with this type. But I think it's still good to go out there and make a good connection because you can read someone better when you are face to face with that person. You can understand what's going on in the world a lot faster compared to when you are online. You are guessing. You don't really know what's going on. It's just a guess. And about a lot of time, we guess the wrong thing and we create a bigger problem. And I think that's the one thing that we need to not letting social media and computers and then iPhones and all those. Don't get me wrong, they're great to have, but don't let them take over control over your life. And I think it's the one thing to do personally.
Yeah, I completely agree with it because if we spend so much time, in isolation just scrolling, we can like overthink and psych ourselves out of the actual action steps that would lead to growing our businesses. For example, just getting on camera like this, right? Just getting your voice out there. I think so many people spend the more time they spend on social media, it's breeding ground for comparing yourself and your journey to other people who might have completely different life circumstances than your own. So, again, like boundaries, healthy boundaries with yourself, social media, business, and life. Like those are the things I love to coach people on in terms of productivity.
Yes, I loved it. So, what are all the services that you offer to guide your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we have three signature services. So our first one is power sessions. Now think of it as business therapy on demand. Essentially, I do feel like I'm a therapist sometimes. I don't have a psych degree, but I do love listening to my clients and using my analytical brain to, pick out what are they really saying, right? Like what is their outcome or goal? And I always ask them, and I think this is something that really differentiates our service in coaching compared to just business consulting, because I do like to collaborate with clients. I always make sure to have their input. I never, try to assume like something is what they want because sometimes what they might be telling me and like, their tone of voice, or, their actions might be telling something different, right? So I would say the
Mm.
coaching, in my opinion, is a more collaborative process, it gives the client space to figure out things on their own instead of, me just telling them, you need to run ads to be successful online, right? Like, I feel like so many people know that already. But I would say, yes, our first session is more for people who have an idea of, what they want to achieve, but they just want like guidance and empathetic support there to listen to them and help keep them accountable. I think accountability is a big part here because I notice in my own life, I really value external live accountability. For example, having personal trainers, right? Like I find that more fun compared to going to the gym by myself and forcing myself to do like 10 push-ups. I can barely do push-ups anyway. Anyway, I always, however, love working in groups like Pilates, for instance. I love going to Pilates classes. I still hate working out by myself. So anyway, I recommend power sessions for, people who value live accountability. They want a safe space to express their feelings and struggles. And I'm very serious about client confidentiality. Like I don't share their things unless I have their express consent to do so. So I think just having that space, instead of always having to rely on family and friends. I do think there is value, sometimes in having that transactional part too, like somebody who's more detached, able to provide a more objective view, but still cares about your success. I think that's a key part to not just our power sessions, but our other services as well. So our second service, Get Your Gig Growing, it's similar to the power sessions, but we designed this 3-module program for people who prefer more structure. Like they know they want to grow their creative business, but they aren't sure, where to start or the foundation. So this is perfect for the beginning freelancer who is just exploring themselves. Like they already have an idea of like the things they want to do, but they're still trying to validate their idea, or maybe they're not sure what their niche is, right? So we help them throughout the modules, figure out their niche, strategize the best way for them to get clients, because as you probably heard from so many business coaches, like just run ads, like 10x your income, things like that. But like that's also assuming that everybody wants to 10x their income, right? Like some people are just trying to get through the day, by themselves, right? Some people are just trying to survive or do different things. Like you can't assume everybody wants to 10x, right? So like here we go over individual strategies for people to outreach, connect with strangers and people in business in a way that works for them. So again, like if they don't like, for example, running ads, like we can find alternate ways. If they don't like cold calling and sales, we'll work on that. Cause like for me, I grew up pretty shy, pretty introverted. It really took me a lot of practice to get on camera. So during this program, sometimes I am like on call with clients and just encouraging them to, just hit send on a video or just make that call, right? Because like, I guess you can run a business without like, cold calling sales, getting on camera, but it really does help because I think in business, you basically always have to work with strangers to some extent, right? New people, it's going to be really hard otherwise. So I do think it's one of those things worth investing in. But that being said, because I've personally been through the struggle myself in terms of making those cold calls and sales and, putting up posters, all the things, like I understand the struggle. And also like, I guess as a woman putting herself out there too, and like, sliding into people's DMs for sales, it did feel a little awkward. But there are, of course, alternate ways to do it as well. So, in this stage, in this service, we go over all those little things. Like I've heard so many things from people and I'm like, I relate so much. This service is really designed again for the newer freelancer in mind, who's trying to build that strong foundation because there are a lot of ways to make quick money online, but one key component of our services is to help people towards sustainable growth, like something that they can hold themselves accountable to. Because if they just make money and then, that's it, like they're done, like onto something else, it's like, oh, like, okay, that's fine. But we're trying to help people for the long run, basically. So I know that was a very long-winded explanation of some of our services, but I just want to, put out the mission and the passion that I have and the vision in the services out there. But with that being said, our third service is actually still in the works. So we are moving soon to a community cohort with co-working sessions and live workshops. So
Mm.
yeah, I know. Based on high demand from our current one-on-one clients, we know it's very lonely, isolating to be a freelancer sometimes. And sometimes they say like, yeah, like, I wish I had more resources just to connect with new people or have a referral network. So that is in progress to be launched probably sometime this year. We're probably going to start out with a free community just to test things out and be generous with people just to get, more people in, right? Similar to how, like ride shares like Uber and Lyft got people in by having low promos and prices, right? Like we just need to get people in the door for that. So that's my vision for our future services. And that is my answer for our current services at the moment. We also do have a VIP package for people who want actual more hands-on help. For example, they want us to create like their website with them or something. That's at a higher price point, of course, but that's also things we're happy to do because, building the website, doing everything from scratch, finding the clients ourselves online, like we can help people with that.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, listening to you talking, the funny thing is that you are absolutely right because you start a business, right? And even if you have the website, then what now? Well, let me sit here and I'm gonna post on social media and clients gonna just flow into my door. And that's a lot of time as business owners, freelancers, we actually thought that's what's gonna happen. And it's actually never happens. And it takes a lot more than that. I think that having you as a coach hiring your company to support it's a big help because clients don't flow into the door like that the way we think, they just don't happen, so we have to go out and get it, and a lot of time the competition is so high, so people have options and you need to know how to represent yourself the proper way, and if you're doing it wrong, you probably will get one client today, you don't get another client again, I don't know, a month, 2 months later. And how do you stay in business? How do you take care of yourself? And I love what you are doing because I don't see people helping freelancers. That's not something I see out there all the time. And I think that freelancers need that, especially if you just don't even know where to start at the beginning anyway. So I think your services are awesome. I guess that's what I'm trying to tell you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I love that. And that brings up another point, if I may go on
Go
a
ahead.
related tangent here. Freelancing, it's interesting. It's not something that, I actually planned for my life. I think it's probably other freelancers, especially creative ones, can relate to it too. It's something I just kind of found myself doing, like the tutoring on the side, for example. Like in my head, I consider that more of the freelancing part, or like in the past, I've done photography and art commissions for people too. But interestingly, like in my mind, I think the difference here with the freelancing is that like I saw it as a way to get like immediate money, like income. And I think for building a business, it's a little bit different. Like we help creative freelancers with both, right? That's why I don't assume like they want to continue with their freelancing. Like some people want to build like I'll use tutoring as an analogy. Like for example, in some contexts, I am a tutor, right? But it's not like I want to build a tutoring business. I want to
Right.
build a coaching business instead, right? Those are two completely different things. And then separately, like career is also different in that too. In the beginning, like I actually was helping people more with their career, but it turned into more business coaching, I would say, because that's the part I love helping people with growing their passions, not necessarily looking for a job. Well, we have helped people with that in their resumes and cover letters. I just found great joy and passion in helping people grow their passions. So just personal preference, if you will. But with that being said, I absolutely find what I'm doing rewarding, and I'm not going to push a certain lifestyle on somebody because everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, again, that's why I always ask, like, is it a long-term business you want to grow? Because it takes longer to see an ROI, especially if you have a team, like for MAGICAVE even, right? Compared to, tutoring, I get the money on the spot. So I think that's, just an important distinction. I think a lot of people forget when they go into the world of freelancing, they need to often visualize what lifestyle they want for themselves, like in the long term, and take a holistic approach to looking at like their revenue and finances.
Wow. Actually, that's a great point. I never looked at it that way. Maybe I just want to freelance because I just need extra cash for right now. But it's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, you are right about that. So that get me to you have personally faced many challenges with regards to family and mental issues. How did you actually deal with all these things going on and at the same time building a business?
Yeah, that is a great question. So it was very, very tough last year, because I felt like being thrown into a new situation where people's life and death are actually at stake. It was a lot for me, like having never been through it before. So I think for me, like the main word that comes to mind is balance, and trying to keep that in check. Specifically, what I used to achieve balance in my life. So, I didn't go crazy or push expectations that were too high of myself. I know it can be, too hard on myself sometimes, but I'm working on it. So, I would say definitely one, time management, and number two, boundaries. And again, like boundaries, like we talked about with myself, in my business, with family and friends as well, especially when people are sick or disabled. It's really hard sometimes to have those boundaries. Like in the past, because my dad is paralyzed neck down, sometimes during meetings, he would sometimes need something, but I'm also in the meeting, right? So it's kind of a decision I have to make in the moment. We resolved the issue now because we have a home assistant who helps out with the day-to-day stuff, which, whew, like, thank goodness for him. But yes, I think honestly, it just took time to sort out things. Like, not every season of life is going to be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So I acknowledge that, like most of my life, aside from like last year, has been pretty smooth, like pretty good. So I was like, okay, like there's some balance here. Like, hopefully next season will be better, right? So I think just having faith that next year, next month, whatever it was, having hope that things would get better definitely kept me going during this very tough time. And again, I'm really happy that I was able to be there with my family, that my mom, is fully recovered, and my dad, he's in the same house as me right now, that, he's able to um, actually enjoy retirement to an extent. Of course, not with the same mobility as he probably imagined before. But compared to before in his career as a medical doctor, now, he actually has time to catch up with friends or just enjoy the quiet nature and scenery. So I guess there's a blessing in every hard thing. Is the circumstance unfortunate? Yeah, it still is compared to his mobility. So, fingers crossed through the physical therapy and occupational therapy he's getting that he can recover soon.
I think he's going to be just fine. And not to
I hope so
mention, he has
too.
you, so he's not alone.
Oh, yes, he definitely does. I'm usually the one who takes the phone calls and like schedules the appointments and stuff. I actually love logistics, so that stuff is fine with me. But that being said, I have to be careful that I guess not to take it too overboard because there's only one me. I only have so much brain power and energy. So I try to save that specifically for my business and family and friends if they really need.
Absolutely. So, as women, we juggle so many different things at once. We don't even realize we are doing it to ourselves. And sometimes, too, we forget to take times for ourselves because we have family, we have the business, we have friends, so many things. And then when you lay in that bed, you realize that, wait a minute, did I eat dinner? Because you didn't even remember what you did. So, I think that over time we learn to manage it, and I think that's what you are doing. That's something you are not prepared for. I think that what happened to your mom, and then right after that your dad, you are not prepared for that. And things like that takes time to like, just the shot take you time to take a deep breath away from it, and also that to like, how am I going to manage all this? So I think that you did great to be able to build a business and helping people find their own passion, and then create something for themselves, because the pandemic hit us very hard and we were not expecting all that, and being able to help people who even if they don't want to turn it to a business, just to do the freelancing, to be able to put food in the table for the family. I think that's very important what you are doing.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it so much. And that brings up another motivation for starting MAGICAVE was, well, interestingly, I actually helped people with career coaching in tech at first, um, coming from my master's in computer science degree. But I think definitely the family circumstances, juggling everything as women, like you said, really made me reprioritize, like, okay, am I getting the most fulfillment from helping people land jobs in big tech, right? And I think there was still a part of me that was still kind of burnt out from the corporate workplace, kind of wanted to get away from that. So, like, for me, that was the point where I went into productivity coaching instead, like more general life coaching. Um, and then from that, interestingly, that was my intention to stick to that type of coaching. But everybody asked me about the business stuff anyway, from the small legal stuff, from how do I form my LLC, or how do I organize my business finances, right? How do I get my clients? And all these things. So I was like, yeah, I might as well just sell the business coaching instead, honestly. And I get great fulfillment from that. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying it's not, it wasn't my original intention in some ways. But I do love how it evolved.
You listen to the people what they wanted. Well, I wanted to give you A, you asked me for B, so here's B. I'm still happy.
Exactly. And I think it's really fun to grow along with clients too, right? Because I think, I mean, life is a lifelong growing process. We're always learning, we're always healing, there are always new experiences. So, I try not to take that stuff for granted. But I think, again, like going back to success and achievement, like we discussed before, I think with MAGICAVE, what I'm trying to do is present a more healthy alternative to what does success and achievement look like, right? Because like for some people, it is just um, like spending time with family in a quiet suburban home, right? And there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that. You just like shouldn't, judge the way people spend their life. Now, some people may love to, just be single and be a digital nomad all their life. And that's perfectly fine too. We should just, respect other people's choices. It doesn't mean we're always going to agree with people's life choices, or their values might not always align with ours. But we don't need to be bullies about it, right?
Yes.
So I always try to, remind people, and myself sometimes, like, it's not like I go out there and say any mean things, but like, sometimes I take a step back and be like, I shouldn't judge people who are, I guess, for example, like getting a house and kids young just because the way they're doing things is different than me, right? It's a perfectly valid way of living life. It's just, different from what I'm doing so far. And, I have that respect still.
Exactly. And also, I think that it has also a lot to do with the culture as well. It's depending on the family. Sometimes even it's kind of funny being in the United States. You think that all of us will be in the same culture because a lot of us born here, raised here. But again, we have to go back to our heritage, our family values. So the way the great grandparents was doing it, sometimes our parents continue it and it pass on to us. And like different places, like for example, if you go to a Spanish place, you will find them, they have kids very early and it's normal for them, right? And I remember in my age, I didn't have kids. My entire family think I will never have kids. Well, I don't think she's gonna have kids. She's early in mid 20s. That's not gonna happen. But it's like every family. It's everything is different for them. And I think what you said is properly right. We shouldn't judge until we can understand. And if we don't have the time to spend to understand that person, it's better not to judge at all. And I always tell my son, if you don't have anything nice to say about someone, don't say it at all because you don't know that person. So don't just say something mean about someone you don't even know who they are. So I back up what you said. You are absolutely right about it, because success is different for everyone. Everyone look at success. Some people making a lot of money is successful for them. Compared to me, making a lot of money is not success. I want to be healthy. I want to be able to see my family happy. I want to be able to support my family in different ways, not just money. So it's, I guess, different things mean different, ways, look different ways for other people, and different meanings as well for for different people. And I love what you are doing, because, like you said, with one of your services, it's you get to listen to what they want, not you telling them what you think they want. And I think I love that, because a lot of a lot of coaches that I met, they be like, well, ABC, follow it, you'll be fine. ABC might have worked for you. ABC might have worked for your previous client. Maybe it will not work for that client. So I think what you are doing, it's again, it's amazing. You give people a voice, you listen to them, and then you help them out to create something that's meaningful to them and what they think success is for them. And I don't think there's nothing else you can do for them, really.
Ah, that's true. That's one of my favorite parts about the job, if you will, like getting to meet people like you, like passionate people who are, they just want to serve the community. That's one of my favorite parts, being connected with such people. But what you said also reminded me of one guiding philosophy that I often have for myself. I should put it more out there, but that to avoid, I guess, myself from judging people too much, I always try to remind myself people are making the best decisions they think is right for them. Like, we believing that people want to do good, better for themselves, basically. So, for example, if people make mistakes in school, right? Like, I try to remind myself, like, okay, it's not like they wanted to make the mistake, or that, they're, um, that because they make a mistake, it's a character flaw or anything, right? We all make mistakes.
Yes.
But always keeping in mind, like, people want to do the best that they can, is something I remind myself of on a daily basis, like not just for other people, but also to extend more of that compassion and forgiveness for myself too, reminding myself that I'm human.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's something that you say, you apply a holistic approach to coaching. Is there a reason why you do so, and how do you think it can impact better than other methods?
Yeah, absolutely. So I say holistic coaching because, going back to my philosophy of having balance in your life, I think it's important because, the life stuff I often notice affects business more than actual business stuff affects business. I mean, look at my own life and how MAGICAVE started as a need to accommodate to my lifestyle at the moment, right? It's like, people often think it's the other way around, but in reality, I mean, we work because we need to live, right? It's not like we exist to work.
Yes.
So I try to, remind people of that. But yes, I do think that everything affects each other. There's a ripple effect that, if you just look at, for example, one part in business, um, for example, let's say you're trying to build a social media following or an email list. Yeah, you can dive into things and certainly build those. But if the passion, for example, if the founder is just not there, they might, give up when it gets hard at some point, or they might find a different passion or a different niche. I mean, I know I've done that plenty of times in my career. No shame in it, honestly.
No.
There's some trial and error, so I think, that's fine. But I do think, like, going back to, how a lot of business coaches try to rush you to success in some ways. They don't often encourage people, to stop and think, like, is this really what you want for your own life? Like, is this really in alignment with your values? Because I think, and I think hustle culture, especially in the US, is to blame too, because, I mean, we're so rushed to, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
become a millionaire or something like that, right? But um, yeah, it's also important to recognize, like, the journey is life. Like, this moment is all we have. So I try to remind people we need to look at the whole picture, because, what we were saying, we finished a website, we hit our financial goals. Now what, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. And I think that looking at it this way as well, it's a good way also to help your clients build to be able to build on a proper way, because also fast growth is good, but also it can crash you down so fast when you go back down to number one, step one again. And what was the whole purpose of it in the first place if you're gonna go back to step one? So the whole goal, like I feel like with what you are doing, your goal is to make sure that you don't go back to step one because you accomplish step one so well that it will get you to step two.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And that also reminded me early on in my business, I think that was a mistake that I made trying to go into paid advertisements too soon when I was still trying to figure out for myself what my ideal client looked like, my niche. Am I actually selling a product or service that people want, right? So for me, I found like organic outreach or like just directly talking to people, becoming a customer service representative, like actually listening to people. Like that's something I learned early in my business, to actually listen to people. Like sometimes we think we're listening to people, but are we listening, right? So I think for me, like trying to bridge the gap between, my business ideas, visions, and dreams and like, actual reality. Like, is this something that actually helps people solve problems? Like, is it just another course that's going to
Mm-hmm.
sit on the shelves of my ideal client, right? So I think about that sometimes in terms of what is the best way to deliver the product or service.
Wow. But that also got me to, I know you are in New York, and do you offer your services anywhere within United States or even outside of United States, or they have to be in certain areas?
So for my coaching services, it's virtual, so it can be anywhere in the world. So I'm pretty flexible with my schedule and different time zones. I love to meet people internationally as well. Maybe someday, I would consider in-person services. And I mean, back when, I was doing tutoring or photography, art commissions, those things were more in person. But there are so many small things that go into in person. For example, risk of getting COVID,
True.
commuting and transportation, public transit delays, you name it, right? There are a lot of moving parts, but I do think virtual is generally an easier way to get started. Also, for the fact that considering the client, like again, like what is the best way to deliver their service? Like I think for some things, like personal training and going to the gym, like I found in-person services for that compared to doing it virtually online, a lot more useful. But I think for what we're offering, like which is business therapy in some ways, right? Like because I've also done therapy in the past, like online too. Um, like I found it in a weird way, like almost more helpful because I could sit wherever I wanted in a
Mm-hmm.
um, in a space at home from the comfort of my computer and meet somebody virtually without, necessarily having, I guess, to worry like, oh, is it too late at night?
Right.
All these anti-Asian hate attacks like going on in New York City at night. Like sometimes I think about that. Like I try not to let it stop me, but yeah, it's something I'm like, oh, like that's like, kind of dark to think about, but safety and comfort of home is always here.
Exactly. And also that you help anyone like just thinking about being a freelancer or trying to take that freelancing mindset into a business mindset. You can help from both stage, from starting to being a freelancer to want to just making this a business.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. And like if I were helping an influencer, for example, I would definitely ask, why you're doing it. I love to ask this question to people. What are your core values, right? Because I think it often makes people stop and think like, huh, what are my core values,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
I know for me, one of them is definitely accountability. That's a huge value of my, like, I know not everybody shares that value, but it's important to me. So, I try to attract and work with clients who also share that value, right? So, I'm not going to go out there and try to get every single client, right? I think, especially when starting out in business, I know it's tough because there's no momentum and you're just trying to get something going. And for people who let's say they don't have much else going on in their life. Maybe they're going through a messy divorce or something. Like they might put more pressure on their business or growing gig to work out, right? But I
Right.
find that's often counterproductive in a way, because if you put like so much pressure on yourself for something to work out, you're not going to have fun in it anymore. You're going to forget the reason you like why you did it, right? And because I mean, I've kind of been through that trap before, which is why I share, part of it based on my own experience and also my observations as well. Um, which is why, like, if people are trying to build a business, I would, recommend trying to reach a state of financial comfort for at least like a few months to
Mm-hmm.
delve into it if they wanted to leave their full-time job. But if you're, freelancing and doing a full-time job, I think that's equally as fine as well, right? Like everybody knows their financial circumstance, um, better than I could for their own life, because like I'm not dumb, right? I haven't been in their shoes. And I also acknowledge like, there are cultural differences too in the way we spend money, geographically, even within the US too. Like, I mean, the living cost in like New York City is so much higher compared to some other parts in America. So, when people ask me like, what's financially sustainable, I ask them like what their goals are, like not, something they read on the Washington Post or New York Times, but like just for their own life, like what does that look like for food, for housing,
Yes.
and I think going back to the holistic coaching question, like this is how, motivation for business like feeds into life and vice versa, right? So hopefully that answers your question.
God damn, thank you. But so if someone wanted to get your services, how do they get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can visit my website, magicavemedia.com. They can book a free clarity call with me. They can also book directly on the site if they're ready to pay upfront. But I do recommend having a clarity call first. I offer that complimentary, just so people and I can assess if we're a good fit. If we're not a good fit, that's totally fine and respectable, especially, if they're looking for something that I don't offer or don't have as much expertise in, I might try
Mm-hmm.
to refer them to other resources. So it's not like, I get on call and it's like, oh, you wasted my time, anything. No, like I actually try to help people, right? Like people are giving me the privilege of their time and energy, and I try to reciprocate that as much as I can.
And then with talking to you, I can imagine you probably will go like an hour trying to help someone without even charging that person. I feel like you are that type of person who want to help other people.
Well, I would say it stems from a place of generosity and gratitude. I would say is the big one, because I think from moving from a place of gratitude, for example, compared to entitlement, let's say, entitlement, it's like, oh, like, this should have been a good call. Like I deserve to, um, I guess have these 15 minutes to myself, right? But I moving to a place, a mindset of gratitude instead. I'm like, oh, this person, believes that I could be a good fit for their services. They see something within me and what we have to offer the world. Now, I would love to help them and see, if there's an avenue for collaboration and how I can help them potentially achieve their potential if that's what they're looking for.
Exactly. And I love what you use, clarity. And I love that call. You call it clarity because it's important to be able to understand one another when you're gonna start working together. So I love how you called it. It's kind of make it clear for someone. We're going to have a clarity call here, so everything will be straight out before we even start working.
Oh, yes, exactly, exactly. I do try to make it clear because, or like I like to listen to people and pull out the parts for clarity because, I mean, I love doing, strategy things, stuff, like even in video games and like my personal life, like I journal a lot. Like I even have my little journal here, for instance, in front of me. Yeah,
Same
like
here.
oh, that's so cute. Oh man. Yes, I'm huge on stationery for fun, just for relaxing, detoxing. I love to get bubble tea, like walking outside to the nearest coffee shop, just gathering my thoughts and like preparing for the next day or for whatever lies ahead in the current day, just to de-stress. I think having that time alone to yourself is important, especially in today's busy world,
Hmm.
to have some time for self reflection, self awareness, because I think if we're always just hustling, it's hard to step back and reevaluate ourselves from time to time.
Exactly. So you have traveled about 28 countries so far. So
Yeah.
how's the journey
Yeah.
from one country to another?
How did I do it?
Yeah, how's the journey? Because 28 countries is a lot of countries to visit.
Yeah. So, okay, so I've been very blessed, very fortunate. I don't have these privileges right now, but I used to have flight benefits through my mother, who worked for an airline. She still does. Those benefits expired when I turned um, into my mid 20s. So I was like, like at least I got to enjoy it when I was younger. But for me, I think that how was the journey? I would say it definitely exposed me to a lot of different cultures from a young age. It taught me to be very independent and sort out logistics by myself, and not to like take for granted or rely that other people, have plans going so I can just let loose and relax for myself. Like, no, especially if you're solo traveling, you always want to make sure you have a plan
Hmm.
for yourself. For example, I went to Estonia recently this summer for a conference, Mind Valley University. It was so much fun. I would totally go to it again. Highly recommend. It's self help basically, but mindful self help. So that's my little spiel on that. But anyway, shortly after I went to Estonia, I got COVID when I came back to the US. Um, yeah, it was not fun. But anyway, if I didn't have, for example, like a plan on how to get, home, or like what I was going to do if I got sick, like those things I planned in advance in Estonia. Like, even though I got sick back in New York, like I still planned, like, okay, if I got sick in Estonia, what would happen, right? So looking into that resource, or just connecting with other people, like locals, for instance. I think that's something a lot of, like, especially American tourists overlook. Actually getting a rich cultural experience involves like kind of straying from the big bus tours, right? Like, it involves like actually listening to people and going back to respecting other people's way of living and trying out something new, right? Because but going back to how was the journey for me and traveling, I would say it definitely taught me to be comfortable with getting out of my comfort zone, but also to be patient with myself as well, because there are so many things during travel, like in life, that can, cause travel delays or make you late to things or miss
Hmm.
flights. Like, I've seen like a lot of different things. And I think I would say overall, it's taught me just to be like more grateful, because now, like, I'm not traveling as much, right? But like, I still feel like, just as, if not more fulfilled now, because I'm spending that time and energy with my family. Um, but no disrespect to people in their 20s who are like going on these very fancy trips and stuff, like, envious maybe slightly, but it's okay, because I know I've done that stuff when I was younger. So I think for me, it's like paying it back forward to my family, because it's because of them I had these experiences. So I really want to honor it and pay them back in a way that makes me feel good, like not just, in terms of like Chinese culture, my family's of Chinese heritage, but in terms of, my integrity, and what I want my lifestyle to be like. Like, I want it to be close with my family and friends. And I think the pandemic, especially like being forced to slow down and not travel as much, like opened up more space for me to deepen that connection.
Yes, absolutely. And then I think I love your journey too, but I'm not sure if I would eat the cricket though. I would have to think about it a few times before I put. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll get back at you in that one. But what would be your advice for women starting out?
So I would say for women starting out, I have two main pieces of advice. So the first one is find a community of support. Not everybody's going to understand what you do and why.
Hmm.
I've noticed that even for my own family. Like, don't get me wrong, they've been supportive, but I don't really know any. Like, I didn't grow up with many entrepreneurs around, or ever like freelancers. So I really had to go out there and seek them out. And just having people who understood the struggle. Again, not that my family and friends weren't supportive. I think it's kind of one of those things where, you have a family emergency and other people with family emergencies can understand what that feels like. Whereas somebody who hasn't been through that experience, like they still might have sympathy, right? But they still might not understand it in the same way, the same struggles. So that's why I recommend it, to just have that support system and community who understands you. And the second piece of advice is really important. Don't compare your journey to other people's journey. I know it's really hard, especially in the US. Like so many people are comparing income, status, all these things. Um, but it's really important to remember, like, your life is yours. And if you're relying solely on external validation all the time, how to live your life, like, you're always going to have to rely on other people in that sense. Not that, relying on other people is a bad thing. Like, we all need each other to live. Like, everything we touch basically has been touched or made by other people already, right? So, when it comes to things like, I don't know, being self-made, right? Like, I'll use that as a point of comparison. Like, nobody's ever completely self-made. Like, there's an element of luck to it too. Like, I know a lot of people don't like to admit it. Like, I think that hard work puts you in a better position to get lucky. I think that's true. But for example, being unlucky in the sense, like, maybe lightning struck your home or something, like maybe something out of your control happened.
Right.
And it's like, how do you compare, like, somebody else's journey or the results they could have gotten with yours, right? And it's a breeding ground for envy or resentment, like all these bad things. And ultimately, I think a big one, even related to what we help people overcome in our services at MAGICAVE, procrastination. Because, like, I often notice, like, the people comparing, or people who have this idea of, like, this is what my life should look like, this is what my business should look like. It leads to, like, putting things off longer and procrastinating even more, and then putting more pressure on themselves. Is just this really unhealthy cycle. And I often find that it stems from comparison. So again, going back to social media and boundaries, like, that's why it's always important to be mindful from time to time. Not that you have to completely unplug if you don't want to, but to critically think about it from time to time. Because I do notice that element is often missing, critical thinking in a way, because we're often just fed things in front of us, through the TV or through our news feed. But sometimes we don't think about, like, not everybody has good intentions in the world,
Yes.
right? Like, some people have ulterior motives. And, like, if people put an ad up on social media, like, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have good intentions to help you. Maybe they just want your money or something, or to scam you, right? So I think people often forget that, and like the reasons why, like, certain things are put in front of us. So again, that's why I personally love to spend time by myself from time to time, de-stressing, decompressing in the coffee shop, just to, make sure I'm still a sane person, that I'm still myself.
And I love what you said also. Don't compare yourself with other people, because you are you. And all you can do is just being you. So when you're comparing yourself with, especially with big celebrities, you can't compare yourself with them. And they have a brand to sell. All they're trying to do is sell you that brand. Either how you take it or not, that's you. But they're trying to sell your brand. And a lot of time, even some business owners, all they're trying to do is sell your brand. And you comparing you with them, maybe it's the wrong thing to do. So I think it's the best advice you can give someone. Stop comparing yourself with other people. It's not me that said it, she did.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's easier said than done. And it's not like you do it once and you're set. Like, it's a mantra that I basically have to, remind myself and other people, like, every day. So, like, again, life is a lifelong journey. It's a work in progress. Nothing's going to be perfect. But with that being said, I mean, comparison is the thief of joy at the same time, right? So I do try to remind people to be present and just enjoy what they have in the moment. Even me, right? I mean, like, building a business is stressful enough. So, like, I try to remind myself from time to time to also have fun with it too, being, hard on myself, impatient at times, trying to move things too quickly in certain directions. I try to remind myself to slow down and enjoy the journey.
Yes, exactly. And don't take everything for granted. So I think that's the best advice ever. Don't compare yourself. Just don't do it. Thank you so much, Michelle, for giving me that time to have this conversation with you. I appreciate you. sharing your knowledge and telling us more about your company and all you are doing. What you are doing, I don't see it out a lot, especially helping freelancers and helping them if they want to decide that they want to turn that to a business. So keep doing what you are doing and also keep tutoring, passing on your knowledge because, hey, you are helping our next generation. So what else can I say? I appreciate the conversation and then thank you for a great time.
Oh, thank you so much, Nagilia. It was a pleasure being on this call with you. I enjoyed our conversation so much, and I'll see you next time.